Campaign has descended into chaos after Gordon Brown was caught on microphone describing a pensioner he'd just met as a bigoted woman. Gillian Duffy had tackled Mr Brown on a range of issues, especially immigration. He later returned to apologise, and this evening he also apologised to Labour workers. Our political editor Nick Robinson reports on the day's events.
Hello, how are you?
No.
Now come and have a talk with me. How are you getting on?
They said he wanted to meet more ordinary voters. After all, what on earth could possibly go wrong?
It's a nice area though, isn't it? It's a nice area, isn't it?
My family have voted Labour all their life.
Yes, yes.
My father, even when he was in his teens, went to Free Trade Hall to sing the red flag.
Yes.
It started well enough when Mrs Gillian Duffy, a widow from Rochdale, was introduced to Gordon Brown by her local Labour candidate.
Why are you going to get us out of all this debt,
Because
Gordon?
we've got a deficit reduction plan, cut the debt by half over the next 4 years. We've got the plans, they've been set out to do it.
He seemed happy to talk, so she moved on to the subject which voters worry about and their leaders tread nervously around: immigration.
6 months.
You
6
can't
months.
say anything about the immigrants because you're saying that but all these Eastern Europeans what are coming in, where are they flocking from?
1 million people come from Europe, but 1 million people, British people, have gone into Europe. You do know there's a lot of British people staying in Europe as well.
The two parted on apparently good terms. The Prime Minister warm, attentive and concerned on camera. But now listen to what he really thought when he was in private, but still wearing his TV microphone.
It's a disaster. Well, just... Okay. Should never have put me with that woman. Whose idea was that?
No, I didn't see her.
It's Sue, I think. They're just ridiculous.
I'm not sure they'll go with that one.
They will go with it.
What did she say?
Oh, everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman.
Unaware that she'd just been called a bigoted woman, Mrs Duffy was telling reporters how much she'd enjoyed their conversation.
Has Mr Brown got your vote after your talk with him?
Yes.
But minutes later, watch now as she was told the news of what he really thought about her.
I can't believe this, that he's said that. All my life I've been damn well Labour.
As Mrs Duffy wondered what on earth she'd done wrong, Gordon Brown was hearing precisely what he'd done wrong on a visit to the studios of Radio 2.
To her personally.
Someone has just handed me the tape. Let's play it and see if we can hear it.
Should never have put me with that woman. Whose idea was that?
No, I didn't see her.
It's Sue, I think. They're just ridiculous.
By now, at Mrs Duffy's home, she was discovering what it's like to be at the centre of a media storm and taking a phone call from the leader of the country, who just insulted her. He knew there was only one thing to do: to head to her house, to face the cameras and, yes, the microphones too, to apologise in person. For 40 long minutes, Mrs Duffy's door stayed closed, the curtains shut, those outside only able to guess what was happening inside, until a relieved-looking Gordon Brown emerged, having begged for forgiveness.
I've just been talking to Gillian. I'm mortified by what's happened. I've given her my sincere apologies. I misunderstood what she said, and she has accepted that there was a misunderstanding, and she's accepted my apology.
What a furore, what a fuss. What, to use Gordon Brown's own words, a disaster. And all because the lady in this house said what she thought to the Prime Minister, and because he was caught saying what he thought about her. Tonight she has yet to say whether his apology has been accepted. Nick Robinson, BBC News.
Well, the encounter took place in Rochdale, the birthplace of the cooperative movement and a key marginal seat held by the Liberal Democrats, where Labour's been fighting hard. Our special correspondent Richard Bilton has been talking to voters in Rochdale about Gillian Duffy's views and Mr Brown's response.
Rochdale is a mill town marginal, a battle between the Lib Dems and Labour. But down in the town centre, amongst the samosas and the shops, plenty of views on what happened when the Prime Minister met a Rochdale pensioner.
Well, you shouldn't call anybody a bigot, really, should you? You know, and he's talking nicely to her in one way, and then in the next, behind her back, He's actually calling her names, isn't he?
I think it was wrong to say it as he said it, but I would imagine privately that we all say things sometimes.
Wedged up against the Pennines, this is a town with pockets of poverty. It has long-standing communities from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Eastern Europe. So is immigration an issue, or is talking about it the behaviour of a bigot?
Why does it make her a bigot? She's entitled to her say, isn't she? She's going to put in a vote, she's got her opinion.
And is Eastern European people living here an issue to you?
Not to me personally, no.
No, it ain't an issue at all. Everybody has to live somewhere, don't they? And that is it, end of the day.
So this is the neighbourhood that the Prime Minister visited twice in one day. Much publicity for that apology, but in the local pub, did it make any difference?
I think that was very brave that he came back and said sorry, but that we all heard what he said in the first place to a woman that was obviously a very staunch Labour supporter.
If he hadn't been caught, you know, what would have happened? You know, he just shouldn't have said it.
Does the fact that he came back and said sorry make a difference?
No.
Why?
Because he said it.
But he came back and said sorry.
Doesn't matter. He said it. If he didn't mean it, he wouldn't have said it.
This is Mrs. Duffy's hometown. It's perhaps hardly surprising that most people here think she was wronged. I did meet people who said that Gordon Brown deserved some credit for coming back to apologise, but even they said the damage had already been done. Richard Bilton, BBC News, Rochdale.
Well, earlier I spoke to our political correspondent, Peter Hunt, who's in Westminster. I asked him whether Gordon Brown's apology had been enough.
Well, I think that will very much depend on how you view Gordon Brown. His supporters will be irritated, potentially despairing, but it won't change how they'll vote. His critics will see it as more evidence of the private Gordon Brown they've talked about. But I suppose it's the swing voters, isn't it? And particularly those swing voters who may just have a postal vote sitting on their kitchen table as we speak. Will it influence them? And of course, as well as the interpretation of what impact it has, there are the facts behind all of this. And the facts are that in recent polls, Labour has been trailing third. This is an incumbent Prime Minister seeking for the first time a mandate from you and us, and he's trailing, and on the records it shows that he won't get that mandate, he won't get that majority government, and so he needs something that will boost his popularity, boost his support, and occasions like this plainly do not. In his own words, in the Prime Minister's own words, the penitent sinner, as he called it, this was a disaster. And so that is the impact it's had today. The lasting impact, if any, has yet to be fully evaluated. And of course, we are still waiting for Mrs. Duffy's final comments on her meeting, the private 40-minute meeting. She's stayed behind closed doors. She's represented by a public relations company. As and when she speaks, either through a newspaper or whatever way she chooses to make any sort of public comment, that Gordon Brown will be fervently hoping that she backs him and agrees that it was a misunderstanding and that she has accepted his apology.